You know I'm talking about COVID-19. There's no easy way out. If you can't name that song, then shame on you. You're not American. Okay. I've gotten used to, in doing the morning show, I've gotten used to sort of hitting news as it comes a little bit more quickly, and I'm kind of wired and tired. And I realized I wouldn't be able to talk about this until tonight when we're doing the live stream of the press briefing, which should be a really good one because Donald Trump just signed an executive order on immigration. So stay tuned, follow me on Twitter for that. But this is really important. This just came out, and it is driving me up a wall. I want to know if your opinions have changed or how they've changed throughout this whole kind of pandemic. Not kind of, I mean, you know what? Yeah, kind of pandemic. Because these new numbers, I want to see if you can, I'm not in the studio, so forgive me. I'm almost Samantha Bee or Jimmy Kimmel level hackery here. Hopefully you can see that. From USC, not exactly a bastion of conservatism and the County of Los Angeles Public Health. They did some antibody testing there now, right? Where they took a sample of the county and did some testing to see who maybe wouldn't have tested positive for the virus, but at some point had it. And they found that 2.8 to 5.6 of the county's adult population had antibodies for coronavirus, which means between 220 to 440,000 people in that county have had the virus. Okay, again, pardon me. I'm not doing the Chris Cuomo thing where I'm like, oh, I just came from the gym. It happens. This is just I live like a homeless person. So that means that it's 28 to 55 times higher, the amount of Americans who have the virus than we initially thought. Okay, deaths are still the same. They're at 600. So that means in Los Angeles County, the mortality rate at its absolute highest now is 0.25%. Now, let's just take the sort of middle of the road numbers, right? Look, I don't know if you can see this right now, but now I have to hold up my own arm here because I'm very weak in the shoulder. I can't do the Dolph Lundgren lifting Rocky up. So if you were to just take the average, let's say, 300 something thousand, and be very conservative in our estimate. In Italy, it was 95 to 98%, depending on what sources you use, of people who died from coronavirus had pre-existing conditions or were over the age of 80. I think in New York, it was 90-something% of people who were over the age of, I believe, 70 or had pre-existing conditions. You know what? Let's just call it 80. So of the 600 deaths in Los Angeles County, let's say that really, really low end, 80% of the people who make up those deaths, all deaths matter, of course. I want to make that really clear, okay? I care about all deaths. Right, NSA? That would mean that the mortality rate for an average-aged or middle-aged or above middle-aged of average health American is 0.02%. 0.02%. And again, all lives lost matter, of course, but it seems right now this fundamentally changes how we view this disease. It seems like it's a disease, a virus that is far more communicable than the average flu, but potentially not all that much more deadly, particularly for younger people, healthy people. And there is the possibility that it could be, in some cases, less deadly. And it is just amazing to me. I have to say how disheartening it's been to see people who we thought were kind of more conservatives sounding the alarm and being willing to give up their freedom so quickly. Listen, I've always said this could could still get worse, potentially. Could come back right next year. But this idea that this is something that is worth shutting down, destroying people's lives. You know what? All businesses are essential to the people who rely on them to make a living. Wait, hold on a second, I can't, what do you mean I can't go to work? I can't put food on the table for my family? It's not essential. The elitism, to me, knows no bounds with this. And now you're seeing, too, a lot of, they've been talking about wanting to save local publications. This is the big thing now. They're saying local news needs to be saved. But they can't actually, sorry, I'm hearing my wife yelling at Betty because she just ate a fish oil tablet, and that'll be fun having to see how that comes out later. Hopefully she doesn't choke. I was talking about something here. I'm pretty wired and tired in doing 2 shows a day. I'm not going to lie to you. But it is remarkable to me that we are talking about shutting down people's livelihoods that may never reopen. That's a reality. 30-something% of retail businesses that aren't groceries. They don't believe that they'll reopen after this. And going back to the idea of local media, they've been saying that we need to bail out local media. That's really important. Well, here's the thing. It turns out that most local media is actually owned by the giant national media or international media conglomerates. And so they actually don't qualify. And so now there's some legislation being pushed to bail out the, you know what? Hold on a second. Why do we bail out the Schenectady Register before the franchisee owner of a Shake Shack? How about this? Local media. Once you start actually reporting the facts, reporting the news, and you know what? If you're going to be, we're talking about advocacy journalism, which is really all journalism nowadays. How about you start advocating for the American public that they should be able to go back to work now that we know the mortality rates, now that we know that this virus is far more widespread than we thought and has a far lower mortality than we thought. You do that, then maybe you can get your beak wet with a little bit of the bailout. But if you want to tell everyone else to shut down their businesses as non-essential, I can't think of anything less essential than the Scottsdale Herald, okay? I don't think that you deserve a bailout when there are other people who, A, don't want a bailout, they just want to go back to work, and B, aren't receiving one. And you know what? This is, not only do I think there's not going to be a new normal, and I bet you this is going to be a question tonight at the presser. There should not be a new normal. This, to me, really just showcases a complete lack of understanding as to how the economy works and what a business owner goes through. When they say we need a new normal, I think it was a question at a recent press briefing with Donald Trump. Sports stadiums that have seating for 100,000, now they only have 60,000. Wait, what? Come again, stupid? Do you honestly think that business owners, let's not even take a sports arena, but I think UT, where my brother went, if I'm not mistaken, someone can comment below how much. When he used to go to UT, it was 95,000 seats, and I think they upgraded it to over 100,000 seats. So let's say it's 100,000, split it, make it an even number. Nice even 100,000, because I like doing math when it's more simple. Do you really think that they can sustain those costs at almost half capacity? At only 60,000 people? Let's scale that back. What about restaurants? What about the Italian restaurant down the block that has seating capacity for 200? The new normal is just to shut them out of business? Now your new normal is actually you're only going to seat 100. But hold on a second. That's when we make all of our revenue, during peak hours at dinner time. We need that to keep the doors open, just so that the employer here, the business owner, can eat, let alone the employees. Do people just think that every single business owner is sitting back on a mountain of cash, that you can stand there from your high tower that you hope obviously is bailed out by the federal government as you write from your blog? But it's a legacy paper. But let's be honest, it's really a blog. Most local news, they're blogs. They're blogs that don't really matter, are relatively inconsequential for a lot of them. And the real journalism can be done by people on Twitter or people with YouTube pages. Do you really think that you can half their business and then not have a word to say about it? You know what? Let's take it even further. Let's say they go along with us. Let's say you somehow manage to have some kind of authoritarian regime come in and say, hey, the new normal is all of you business owners, all of you businesses that have a certain capacity for clientele, water parks, sports venues, sports bars, pubs, restaurants, take your pick. I don't know. House of Blues, any place that would require more than 10 people to congregate in order to do business. Let's say that you get some kind of regime that comes in and says, you know what? You have to operate at half capacity, and somehow you manage to do it. What do you think is going to happen to the rest of the American public? The prices of those goods and services are going to double. You think it's tough to go to the movie theaters now? Try it when they can only fit in half the capacity. You think it's tough to go to a ball game now? Wait till you see the prices of the hot dogs and Cracker Jack boxes when they have to cut their capacity in half. You think you think it's expensive to eat out now? Well, guess what? The Schenectady Gazette doesn't really care about you all that much because they got a bailout. So now you're going to be able to go out and eat less. And what do you think that'll do for the economy at large? What do you think it'll do for the global economy? To try and force people's hands, to try and panic people into shame based on what we are seeing now, again, from USC, okay? USC, a death rate, mortality rate at the absolute highest end possible, 0.25, call it 0.26%. I'm feeling generous today. And at the more likely end for average age Americans is 0.02%. Let's split it down. Let's say it's 0.1. To tell the American public to take this on the chin, while you don't have to, is something that I hope people do not soon forget. They were hoping that people would not soon forget this going into elections so they could lay it at the feet of Trump. I am hoping that people do not soon forget the media malpractice, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's press briefing. It should be absolutely lit. So follow me on Twitter or just tune in here on YouTube. I think they start around 6 p.m. Eastern, but President Trump's a busy man, so we don't know when he'll show up. Shoe up? Show. He's a shoe-in to show up. Again, I'm very wired and tired doing 2 shows a day. Look at the grays. Not quite Cuomo. He is a shoe-in to show up. I meant to say shoe-in, show up, and then I split the 2. And what I actually just did in saying that in my brain I split the 2 is I actually just lied. I had no intention of saying shoe-in. I was just embarrassed that I said shoe up.